What is a person's last possession when the world has taken all else? Their land, their name, their kin. Some say it's hope, others, pride. But in Ash Hollow, 1883, it was dignity, and even that was a fragile coin easily stolen in broad daylight. Mirabelle Cordero moved through the afternoon heat like a shadow trying not to be seen. The sun pressed against her back, turning her dark hair into a faint shimmer as she stepped out of the mercantile with a paper-wrapped bundle clutched tight. Her skirt brushed the warped boards of the sidewalk, hem-stitched with care, the fabric clean though faded, the one garment untouched by anyone else's claim. Two ranch hands lounged against the hitch rail, their boots hooked lazy over the bottom rung. They spoke in low tones, their glances carving at her edges. One, a broad-shouldered man with red dust caught in his beard, shifted to block her path. "Where you off to, Belle?" His drawl was slow, sticky, meant to trap her in place. She gave no answer, only angled herself to pass. The second man's grin curled, sly and sharp. He bent slightly, fingers drifting toward the hem of her skirt. It was not hunger in his eyes, but sport, the pleasure of watching something break in public. Her voice came low, as if pride from her chest. "Please, don't lift my skate." The air tightened. Elias Crow had been leaning on the post outside the saloon, cigarette ember glowing in the shade. Half Comanche, half something the town refused to name, he carried a stillness that could unsettle a room without a word. He moved now, 3 steps, and caught the man's wrist before the cloth rose an inch. "That's far enough," he said, his tone stripped of threat but heavy with certainty. The ranch hand's smirk faltered under that steady gaze. A murmur rippled through the street, faces at windows, boots pausing mid-step. Elias let the wrist go, but his stare stayed, an unspoken promise. The men stepped back, muttering curses that sounded more like retreat. Belle passed him without a glance, her steps quick, the bundle held tight. By sundown, the wind had carried the story to every ear in Ash Hollow. By nightfall, Elias Crow had been marked, not with blood, but with a debt neither of them had yet spoken aloud. The days that followed were measured in glances. Elias Crow would appear at Belle's shop with something in need of mending, a torn shirt cuff, a saddle strap frayed at the edges, each repair too small to justify the trip, yet he came all the same. He never lingered more than a minute, yet his presence left the air charged, as if he'd spoken volumes he hadn't. Belle worked in silence, her needle steady, her hands certain. Still, she began adding quiet touches, a straighter seam than necessary, a thread color chosen with care. She never asked why he came. He never explained. Between them grew an unspoken understanding, the kind that deepens in stillness. Outside, the town chewed on their names like a bitter root. At the pump, women lowered their voices when Belle passed. In the saloon, men smirked over whiskey glasses, tossing slurs toward the half-breed who thought himself a gentleman. The gossip was constant, thick as dust after a cattle drive. One evening, the street lamps flickered awake in the cooling dusk. Belle locked her shop door, a basket in her arm. The street was nearly empty, but 3 shadows moved to fill it. The same ranch hands, sober now, their boots heavy with intent. "Well, if it ain't our seamstress," the bearded one said, his voice dripping mockery. "Out past closing time. Dangerous hour for a lady." Belle kept walking, but the second man stepped into her path, eyes gleaming with something meaner than mischief. A 4th shadow slid from the alley. "Elias." He said nothing, only positioned himself between her and the men. The bearded ranch hand's mouth twisted. "You gonna keep playing hero, Crow?" The answer came without words. Elias struck first, a blur of motion, his fist connecting with a jaw in a sound that cracked like dry wood. The street erupted into chaos. Boots scraped, blows landed, curses filled the air. Elias fought with the precision of a man who'd done it too often, each strike controlled but final. When it ended, 2 men limped away and one lay groaning in the dust. Belle's breath came fast, her eyes wide. "You can't keep saving me," she said quietly. Elias wiped the blood from his mouth. "You're not the only one who needs saving." Before dawn, the air in Ash Hollow was sharp with cold, the kind that made each breath feel like it might cut you from the inside. Belle sat at her work table, lamplight spilling over her hands as she hemmed a jacket Elias had left the night before. She hadn't yet decided if she was sewing for him, or for the piece of herself she had seen reflected in his eyes. Hoofbeats broke the quiet, too many for an early rider. She rose, heart quickening, and peered through the window. 3 figures dismounted in the pale light, the ranch hands, their faces set with the grim determination of men looking to settle a score. The door rattled under the first kick. Belle backed away, but the bearded man stepped through, rifle in hand. "Thought we'd finish what we started," he said, his voice low, almost conversational. Another grabbed her arm, his grip biting into her skin, and with a sneer, he yanked at her skirt hem, jerking it upward in a gesture meant not to touch her, but to strip her bare before the world. A shadow filled the doorway. Elias. No shouted warning, no flourish. He crossed the room in 3 strides and drove his shoulder into the man holding her. The rifle clattered to the floor, forgotten in the sudden scramble. The bearded one swung the butt of his weapon, catching Elias across the cheek. Blood sprayed against the counter, but Elias stood his ground, planting himself between Belle and the man as if his body were the only wall she needed. "Leave," he said, voice rough, the single word heavier than any threat. Something in his eyes, unflinching, ready to take every blow they could give, made them falter. The bearded man spat in the dust and jerked his head toward the door. One by one, they retreated, boots echoing in the empty street. Belle knelt beside Elias, her hands framing his face. For the first time, he didn't look away. What passed between them was wordless, a recognition deeper than thanks, heavier than promise. Outside, the sky was bleeding into morning. Maybe, she thought, some souls are not lost in battle or taken by time, but given away freely, because they've finally found where they belong.